let's talk about some of the other experiences or other duties rather. So performing groups. So
Mhm.
I take it you mean like group therapy sessions?
Yeah, psychoeducational groups that teach skills or talk about what brought people here or what they're going to do when they leave, and wellness, things like that.
Okay. So the 5 hours you spend doing that, is that conducting the class or is that also like preparation time or like post class, like post mortem type of activities or?
That's strictly conducting the groups.
Okay. Um, is there preparation like before or after work that go like that would you would apply on top of the 5 hours a week?
I would, accept, if you've been in this job for a long time, a lot of it becomes second nature, and a lot of the prep work you just keep in your head.
Hmm.
But if I were new at it or had only been at it, then I would probably do some studying beforehand and probably some materials, some plans, things like that.
Okay.
So I guess it varies for different people.
Okay. How many patients do you have in a typical session?
Anywhere from 10 to 18.
10 to 18. Okay. And do they all present the same level of challenge, or are there some that are super easy and some that are very challenging?
Oh, there's an enormous range, not only of challenge, but of their cognitive ability at the moment, of their engagement, of attitude. Some people walk in the group with a chip on their shoulder because they're detoxing from some illness, and it's really a range of all sorts of different factors for the group. It's never really, oh, that was a good group, everyone was good, or that was a bad group, everyone was not paying attention or not engaged. It's really a spectrum.
Okay. Checking vital. Okay, so checking vital signs is when you actually go from patient to patient, and you fill out the form itself. Okay. So I mean, if we include that with the so together with the documentation, that's 16 hours per week. So okay. So checking vital signs is 6, and then when you wrote down 10 hours for documentation, was that the manual entry? So like not including the checking the vital signs, or were there other things in the 10 hours?
Documentation of the vital signs I included in documentation.
Oh, okay, okay. Because what I'm looking at here, it says performing groups 5 hours, checking vital signs 6 hours, documentation 10 hours. So the checking vital signs, that 6 hours is part of
No, I'm sorry.
the 10 hours.
I take it back. Hearing that breakdown, I did include documentation of vital signs in the vital sign number. I'm sorry. So documentation of groups is documentation, but then documentation of the vital signs I put in the vital sign number.
I see. So there's how do you get your thoughts from like your subjective thoughts that you get from the group environment? Um, do you just have to sit down at the desktop right away and get them onto the keyboard, or do you write those on a piece of paper as well and then later transfer them into the desktop?
Well, both, because after a group, we try and document as quickly as possible after the group because everything's still fresh in our mind. But we also keep a clipboard in there with us, and we take notes in short. No one wants to spend the group writing down everything the patient says verbatim, because then the patient really feels like it might be, what is he writing? Paranoid patients will really take issue with that. So you try and just jot down a few words that kind of will refresh in your mind later what the patient talked about. Shorthand.
Okay. So you mentioned some of the things that you capture when you're on your rounds, I guess. Is that like a phrase that you use, like when you're on your rounds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. We call them safety rounds, but yeah.
Safety rounds. Okay. So like awake versus asleep, are they okay? Their location. Um,
Mhm.
what other fields am I leaving out on that specific form?
I think no, that covers that form.
Okay. Okay. So it's
That's not a lot of information on that form, but what you have to realize is 15 minutes, that page gets extremely filled up by the end of the day.
sure. Every 15 minutes plus 105 patients. So that, or sorry,
Well,
80 patients.
I should mention each patient has their own sheet.
Sure, sure. That makes sense. Okay.